Question 1. The audit findings indicate that the project team's burn-down and burn-up charts are showing a consistent divergence from the planned trajectory, suggesting potential delays or scope issues. As the Agile practitioner overseeing this project, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action to address these audit observations? Option A. Publicly assign blame to specific team members for the project's deviation from the planned trajectory, as evidenced by the charts. Option B. Instruct the team to immediately increase their working hours to compensate for the perceived slowdown, as indicated by the charts. Option C. Initiate a collaborative session with the team and key stakeholders to analyze the charts, identify root causes for the divergence, and collectively determine necessary adjustments to the plan or scope. Option D. Assume the charts are inaccurate or misleading and continue with the current plan, without further investigation into the divergence. The correct answer is C. Initiate a collaborative session with the team and key stakeholders to analyze the charts, identify root causes for the divergence, and collectively determine necessary adjustments to the plan or scope. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the Agile team to interpret and act upon data presented in burn-down and burn-up charts, which are critical tools for progress tracking and forecasting. The challenge lies in accurately assessing the team's trajectory and making informed decisions about potential risks to delivery, all while adhering to the principles of Agile project management as defined by the PMI ACP framework. The audit's focus on these charts highlights the importance of transparency and data-driven decision-making in Agile environments. The correct approach involves using the burn-down and burn-up charts to identify trends and potential deviations from the planned scope and timeline. Specifically, observing a consistent flattening of the burn-down chart or a widening gap between the ideal and actual burn-up lines would signal a need for proactive intervention. This intervention should focus on understanding the root causes of the deviation, such as scope creep, unforeseen technical challenges, or team velocity fluctuations, and then collaboratively exploring solutions with the team and stakeholders. This aligns with the PMI ACP principle of fostering collaboration and transparency, ensuring that all parties are aware of the project's status and potential impediments. The ethical justification stems from the commitment to delivering value and managing expectations realistically. By addressing deviations early, the team upholds its responsibility to stakeholders and demonstrates integrity in reporting progress. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the visual cues from the charts, assuming that the project will somehow self-correct or that the current pace is acceptable without further investigation. This failure to act on data-driven insights is a direct contravention of Agile principles that emphasize continuous inspection and adaptation. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of diligence and potentially misleads stakeholders about the project's true status, eroding trust. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately attribute the deviations solely to external factors or blame specific team members without a thorough investigation. While external factors can influence progress, a responsible Agile practitioner seeks to understand the complete picture. This approach fails to embrace the Agile principle of creating a supportive environment where challenges can be discussed openly and resolved collaboratively. It also risks creating a culture of fear and defensiveness, hindering effective problem-solving. A third incorrect approach would be to make unilateral decisions to drastically cut scope or change the team's composition based on a superficial reading of the charts, without engaging the team or stakeholders in the decision-making process. This bypasses the collaborative nature of Agile and can lead to solutions that are not sustainable or do not meet the underlying needs of the project. It violates the principle of empowering the team and respecting their expertise. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Regularly reviewing and analyzing progress tracking tools like burn-down and burn-up charts. 2. Identifying significant deviations or concerning trends. 3. Facilitating open discussions with the team to understand the root causes of these deviations. 4. Collaboratively exploring potential solutions and their impact on scope, time, and quality. 5. Communicating transparently with stakeholders about the situation, proposed actions, and any necessary adjustments to expectations. 6. Iteratively inspecting and adapting the plan based on ongoing feedback and progress. Question 2. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for significant technical debt accumulation due to aggressive delivery timelines. The team is debating how to best adhere to lean principles while managing this risk. Which of the following approaches best embodies the lean principle of eliminating waste and building integrity in, while still enabling rapid delivery? Option A. Defer all non-functional requirements and quality checks until after the initial release to maximize the speed of feature delivery. Option B. Integrate automated testing, code reviews, and continuous integration as core development activities from the outset, empowering the team to define and refine these practices. Option C. Focus exclusively on delivering new features, addressing technical debt only when it directly blocks immediate functionality. Option D. Implement a strict, top-down quality assurance process that dictates all technical decisions, overriding team autonomy. The correct answer is B. Integrate automated testing, code reviews, and continuous integration as core development activities from the outset, empowering the team to define and refine these practices. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a functional product with the long-term benefits of sustainable development and team well-being, all within the principles of Lean Agile. The pressure to deliver quickly can tempt teams to cut corners, which can lead to increased waste in the form of rework, technical debt, and reduced team morale. Careful judgment is required to identify and address potential waste without significantly hindering progress. The correct approach focuses on build integrity in by prioritizing the development of a robust, well-tested product from the outset. This involves incorporating quality practices like automated testing, code reviews, and continuous integration as integral parts of the development process, rather than as afterthoughts. This aligns with the lean principle of eliminating waste by preventing defects and the need for costly rework later. It also supports deliver as fast as possible by ensuring that delivered increments are truly shippable and reduce the risk of future delays caused by technical issues. Furthermore, empower the team is crucial, as the team is best positioned to identify and implement quality practices that fit their workflow. This approach upholds ethical standards by ensuring the delivery of a reliable product to stakeholders and fostering a sustainable development environment. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over quality by skipping automated testing and code reviews fails to build integrity in. This leads to significant waste in the form of defects that will require extensive rework, increasing costs, and delaying future deliveries. It also undermines deliver as fast as possible in the long run by creating a fragile code base that is difficult to maintain and extend. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on feature delivery without considering the underlying architecture or technical debt neglects the principle of see the whole. This can lead to a system that is difficult to scale or adapt, creating future waste and hindering the team's ability to deliver value effectively. Finally, an approach that delays decisions about technical direction until the last possible moment, without adequate research or team input, can lead to suboptimal choices that create waste and require significant rework, failing to decide as late as possible effectively. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a continuous assessment of the 7 lean principles. When faced with pressure to deliver, teams should ask, are we eliminating waste by preventing defects? Are we amplifying learning by inspecting and adapting our quality practices? Are we deciding technical approaches as late as possible, but not too late? Are we delivering value as fast as possible without compromising long-term sustainability? Are we empowering the team to make quality decisions? Are we building integrity into our product and processes? Are we seeing the whole system and its impact? This holistic view ensures that short-term gains do not come at the expense of long-term value and ethical delivery. Question 3. When evaluating how to increase the throughput of a struggling Agile team using Kanban, which approach best embodies the core principles of Kanban for sustainable improvement and effective flow management? Option A. Immediately increase the number of tasks that can be moved to the done column each sprint, regardless of upstream bottlenecks or team capacity. Option B. Collaboratively analyze the visualized workflow. Explicitly define policies for each stage. Implement feedback loops to review metrics like lead time and cycle time, and experimentally adjust WIP limits to improve flow. Option C. Impose new, strict deadlines for each stage of the workflow and demand that all tasks be completed within these new, arbitrary timeframes. Option D. Focus on individual team members completing as many tasks as possible, without explicitly defining process policies or limiting work in progress. The correct answer is B. Collaboratively analyze the visualized workflow, explicitly define policies for each stage, implement feedback loops to review metrics like lead time and cycle time, and experimentally adjust WIP limits to improve flow. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a team to balance the immediate need for increased output with the long-term sustainability and effectiveness of their Agile process. Misinterpreting Kanban principles can lead to a superficial increase in throughput at the expense of quality, team morale, and the ability to adapt. Careful judgment is required to ensure that improvements are systemic and aligned with the core tenets of Kanban, rather than simply pushing more work through the system without addressing underlying bottlenecks or inefficiencies. The correct approach involves a collaborative and experimental evolution of the Kanban system, focusing on making policies explicit and implementing feedback loops to understand and manage flow. This aligns with the PMI ACP's emphasis on continuous improvement and adapting practices to the team's context. Specifically, limiting work in progress, WIP, is a fundamental Kanban principle designed to expose bottlenecks and improve flow, not to restrict output indefinitely. By visualizing the workflow and making process policies explicit, the team can identify where work is getting stuck. Implementing feedback loops allows for regular reflection on the process, and collaborative improvement ensures buy-in and sustainable change. Evolving experimentally means making small, measured changes and observing their impact, which is a hallmark of Agile and lean thinking. This approach respects the principles of flow, quality, and team empowerment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing the number of items in the done column without addressing the underlying workflow, or WIP limits, fails to adhere to the principle of managing flow. This can lead to overburdening the system, decreased quality, and increased lead times as work in progress piles up in earlier stages. Another incorrect approach that bypasses explicit policy definition and feedback loops, instead imposing arbitrary targets, ignores the principle of making process policies explicit and implementing feedback loops. This can lead to a brittle process that is not understood by the team and is difficult to improve. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes individual task completion over system flow, without considering WIP limits or the impact on downstream processes, violates the principle of managing flow and can create silos and inefficiencies. These approaches fail to leverage Kanban's strengths for systemic improvement and can lead to a degradation of the Agile process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the core principles of Kanban and their interconnectedness. When faced with a need for improvement, the first step is to visualize the current workflow and identify bottlenecks. Then, consider how to limit WIP to expose these issues. Next, make process policies explicit and establish feedback loops for regular review and adaptation. Finally, encourage collaborative and experimental improvements, always measuring the impact on flow, lead time, and cycle time. This systematic approach ensures that improvements are sustainable and contribute to the overall effectiveness of the Agile team. Question 4. Quality control measures reveal a significant number of defects in the user stories completed during the last iteration, impacting the perceived value of the delivered increment. The team is concerned about the product owner's reaction and the potential for delays. What is the most appropriate Agile approach to address this situation? Option A. Conceal the extent of the defects from the product owner to avoid immediate negative feedback and work on fixing them discreetly. Option B. Independently decide to dedicate the entire next iteration to fixing the defects without consulting the product owner. Option C. Immediately inform the product owner of the quality control findings and collaboratively decide on the best course of action, which may include reprioritizing the backlog or adjusting the current iteration. Option D. Halt all further development until every single defect identified is resolved to a state of absolute perfection. The correct answer is C. Immediately inform the product owner of the quality control findings and collaboratively decide on the best course of action, which may include reprioritizing the backlog or adjusting the current iteration. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the quality control findings directly impact the perceived value and delivery of an Agile project, potentially leading to client dissatisfaction and reputational damage. The team must make a swift and informed decision about how to address the identified issues while adhering to Agile principles and maintaining transparency. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for immediate action with the long-term health of the project and client relationship. The correct approach involves immediate, transparent communication with the product owner and stakeholders, followed by a collaborative decision on how to address the quality issues. This aligns with Agile values of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. By openly discussing the findings, the team empowers the product owner to make informed decisions about prioritization, scope, and potential rework. This fosters trust and ensures that the team is working on the most valuable items, even if it means adjusting the current iteration's goals. The PMI ACP framework emphasizes continuous improvement and adapting to change, which this approach embodies. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to hide or downplay the quality issues. This violates the Agile principle of transparency and can lead to a loss of trust with the product owner and stakeholders. It also prevents the team from learning from the issues and implementing corrective actions, hindering continuous improvement. Furthermore, it can result in delivering a product that does not meet the agreed-upon quality standards, leading to significant rework later and potential project failure. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide to fix the issues without consulting the product owner. While well-intentioned, this bypasses the product owner's role in prioritizing work and making scope decisions. It can lead to the team spending time on fixes that are not the highest priority for the business, or it might not address the root cause effectively if the product owner has a different perspective on the impact of the issues. This undermines the collaborative nature of Agile development. A third incorrect approach would be to halt all development until the issues are perfectly resolved. While thoroughness is important, Agile development thrives on iterative progress and feedback. Halting all work can lead to significant delays, missed opportunities, and a loss of momentum. It also fails to acknowledge that some level of imperfection is inherent in iterative development, and the focus should be on managing and improving quality over time, not achieving absolute perfection before proceeding. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Immediate identification and documentation of the quality issues. 2. Transparent and prompt communication of the findings to the product owner and relevant stakeholders. 3. Facilitating a collaborative discussion to assess the impact of the issues and determine the best course of action, considering prioritization, scope, and potential rework. 4. Adapting the backlog and iteration plan based on the agreed-upon decisions. 5. Implementing corrective actions and ensuring lessons learned are incorporated into future work. Question 5. Analysis of a new software development project reveals a high degree of uncertainty in user requirements, a need for frequent stakeholder feedback, and a team with prior experience in various Agile practices but no strong preference for a single framework. The organization is supportive of Agile adoption, but has limited experience with specific Agile implementations. Which of the following is the most appropriate initial step in selecting an Agile approach for this project? Option A. Conduct a collaborative workshop with the team and key stakeholders to assess project characteristics, team dynamics, and organizational context to identify the most suitable Agile framework or hybrid approach. Option B. Rely on the project manager's past experience to dictate the methodology, ensuring consistency with previous successful projects. Option C. Immediately implement Scrum, as it is a widely recognized and comprehensive Agile framework that can accommodate most project types. Option D. Select Kanban, given the need for flexibility and continuous flow, and assume the team can adapt to its principles without extensive upfront analysis. The correct answer is A. Conduct a collaborative workshop with the team and key stakeholders to assess project characteristics, team dynamics, and organizational context to identify the most suitable Agile framework or hybrid approach. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because selecting the wrong Agile methodology can lead to significant project delays, budget overruns, team dissatisfaction, and ultimately, failure to deliver value to stakeholders. The PMI ACP certification emphasizes the importance of understanding the context and tailoring Agile practices accordingly, rather than rigidly applying a single approach. Careful judgment is required to balance the needs of the project, the team, and the organization. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of project characteristics, team maturity, and organizational culture. This includes evaluating the clarity and stability of requirements, the complexity of the work, the need for rapid feedback, and the level of customer involvement. By considering these factors, a team can make an informed decision about which Agile framework, e.g., Scrum, Kanban, Lean, XP, or hybrid approach best aligns with their specific situation. This aligns with the PMI ACP's focus on adaptive planning and continuous improvement, ensuring that the chosen methodology supports the project's goals and maximizes the likelihood of success. An incorrect approach would be to rigidly select a methodology based solely on its popularity or a superficial understanding of its principles, without considering the specific project context. For example, choosing Scrum for a project with highly unpredictable and rapidly changing requirements, where frequent, small releases are not feasible, would likely lead to frustration and inefficiency. Similarly, adopting Kanban without understanding its principles of limiting work in progress and focusing on flow could result in a chaotic and unproductive environment. Another incorrect approach would be to impose a methodology from the top down without involving the team in the decision-making process, which undermines Agile principles of self-organization and empowerment. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that involves 1. Understanding the project's objectives and constraints. 2. Assessing the team's experience and capabilities. 3. Evaluating the organizational environment and its readiness for Agile adoption. And 4. Collaboratively selecting and adapting a methodology that best fits these factors. This iterative and collaborative process ensures that the chosen Agile approach is not just a theoretical construct, but a practical tool for achieving project success. Question 6. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of data exposure if sensitive customer information is included in process documentation. Your Agile team is conducting a value stream mapping exercise to identify and visualize the steps required to deliver a new digital service to customers. Which approach best balances the need for process visibility with regulatory compliance and data protection principles? Option A. Document the value stream map using encrypted files and restrict access to a small group of senior management to mitigate the risk of data exposure. Option B. Include specific customer identifiers and transaction details within the value stream map to ensure a complete and accurate representation of the end-to-end customer journey. Option C. Create a generalized value stream map that depicts the flow of work and information at a high level, using abstract representations for customer data where necessary and focusing on the stages of service delivery. Option D. Avoid mapping any steps that involve customer interaction or data, focusing solely on internal system processes to prevent any potential data leakage. Correct answer is C. Create a generalized value stream map that depicts the flow of work and information at a high level, using abstract representations for customer data where necessary, and focusing on the stages of service delivery. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient value delivery with the imperative to comply with regulatory frameworks governing data handling and customer privacy. The core tension lies in identifying and visualizing process steps without inadvertently exposing sensitive information or violating data protection principles, which are paramount in regulated industries. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the value stream mapping process itself does not create new risks. The correct approach involves creating a generalized value stream map that focuses on the flow of work and information at a high level, abstracting away specific customer data. This approach is right because it adheres to the principle of data minimization and privacy by design, which are fundamental to many regulatory frameworks, including those that might govern financial services or healthcare. Though specific regulations are not cited here, the principles are universal in regulated environments. By visualizing the process without detailing sensitive customer information, the team ensures that the mapping exercise itself does not become a vector for data breaches or privacy violations, thereby maintaining regulatory compliance and protecting customer trust. An incorrect approach that involves detailing specific customer identifiers within the value stream map is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes data protection regulations that mandate the secure handling of personally identifiable information, PI. Such an approach creates an unnecessary risk of data exposure, potentially leading to severe regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer confidence. Another incorrect approach, which is to avoid mapping any customer-related information whatsoever, is also professionally flawed. While it prioritizes data security, it fails to achieve the core objective of value stream mapping, to identify and visualize the steps required to deliver value to the customer. This overly cautious stance hinders the team's ability to understand bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and opportunities for improvement in the actual delivery of value, ultimately undermining the Agile principle of continuous improvement and customer focus. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment of the value stream mapping activity. Teams should first identify what information is truly necessary to visualize the flow of value. Then, they should consider how to represent this information in a way that is compliant with relevant data protection and privacy regulations. This often means using anonymized data, aggregated metrics, or abstract representations of information rather than specific customer details. If there is any doubt about compliance, consulting with legal or compliance officers is a critical step before proceeding. The goal is to achieve transparency and process improvement without compromising regulatory obligations or customer privacy. Question 7. The control framework reveals that a critical dependency for an upcoming sprint is blocked due to an external vendor's delay. The Agile team lead is aware that informing the product owner and stakeholders immediately might cause concern and potentially lead to a perceived failure to deliver value on time. The team lead is considering several approaches to manage this situation. Option A. The team lead instructs the team to continue working on the original tasks as if the dependency were not blocked, hoping the vendor will resolve it before the sprint ends, and only inform stakeholders if the delivery is definitively impacted. Option B. The team lead decides to work around the blocked dependency by assigning the team to other tasks that appear to deliver value, without informing the product owner or stakeholders about the original dependency issue, hoping it will resolve itself or be addressed later. Option C. The team lead facilitates a discussion with the team and the product owner to openly acknowledge the impediment, explore alternative approaches to mitigate the impact, and collaboratively decide on the best course of action, including transparent communication with stakeholders about the revised expectations and the plan to address the dependency. Option D. The team lead informs the product owner and stakeholders that the dependency is blocked, but focuses solely on the negative impact and the inability to deliver, without proposing any solutions or involving the team in problem solving. The correct answer is C. The team lead facilitates a discussion with the team and the product owner to openly acknowledge the impediment, explore alternative approaches to mitigate the impact, and collaboratively decide on the best course of action, including transparent communication with stakeholders about the revised expectations and the plan to address the dependency. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in Agile environments, balancing the need for rapid adaptation with the imperative of maintaining transparency and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a leader to navigate competing priorities and make a decision that impacts team morale, stakeholder trust, and the long-term health of the Agile process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen approach upholds the core values of the Agile mindset. The correct approach involves openly discussing the identified impediment with the team and stakeholders, seeking collaborative solutions, and documenting the resolution as a learning opportunity. This aligns with the Agile principles of transparency, respect, and continuous improvement. Transparency ensures that all parties are aware of the challenges and can contribute to solutions. Respect for the team's efforts and their ability to problem solve is demonstrated by involving them in the discussion. Continuous improvement is fostered by learning from the impediment and adapting processes to prevent recurrence. This approach also embodies openness and courage by addressing the issue directly rather than circumventing it. An incorrect approach that involves the team lead unilaterally deciding to bypass the identified impediment without discussion fails to uphold transparency and collaboration. This can erode trust, create a perception of favoritism or a lack of respect for the team's concerns, and hinders continuous improvement by not addressing the root cause. Another incorrect approach, which involves hiding the impediment from stakeholders, undermines transparency and can lead to a loss of confidence when the issue eventually surfaces. This also demonstrates a lack of courage and openness. A third incorrect approach, which involves blaming individuals for the impediment, directly contradicts the principle of respect and can damage team morale, creating a fear-based environment that stifles collaboration and innovation, thereby hindering continuous improvement. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes open communication, collaborative problem-solving, and adherence to Agile values. This involves first understanding the nature of the impediment and its impact, then engaging the team and relevant stakeholders in a transparent discussion to explore potential solutions. The chosen solution should be evaluated against the Agile principles of adaptability, collaboration, continuous improvement, focus on value, transparency, respect, courage, and openness. Finally, the outcome and lessons learned should be documented to support ongoing adaptation and improvement. Question 8. Research into Agile practices reveals a scenario where a key stakeholder approaches the development team directly with an urgent request for a new feature, bypassing the product owner. The development team is unsure how to proceed, as this request was not part of the current sprint backlog or the prioritized product backlog. The Scrum Master observes this interaction. What is the most appropriate decision-making framework for the Scrum Master to guide the team and ensure adherence to Scrum principles? Option A. Advise the product owner to immediately add the stakeholder's request to the product backlog and prioritize it above all other items. Option B. Facilitate a discussion between the stakeholder and the product owner to assess the request's impact on the product backlog and current sprint goal. Option C. Encourage the development team to self-organize and decide whether to work on the stakeholder's request based on their current workload. Option D. Instruct the development team to immediately incorporate the stakeholder's request into their current work to ensure stakeholder satisfaction. The correct answer is B. Facilitate a discussion between the stakeholder and the product owner to assess the request's impact on the product backlog and current sprint goal. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile environments where the perceived urgency of a stakeholder request clashes with the established Scrum framework. The professional challenge lies in balancing stakeholder satisfaction with the integrity of the Scrum process, which is designed to promote predictability and sustainable development. A careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of Scrum while managing external pressures. The correct approach involves the Scrum Master facilitating a discussion between the product owner and the stakeholder. This approach is right because it upholds the defined roles and responsibilities within Scrum. The product owner is solely responsible for the product backlog and prioritizing work. The Scrum Master's role is to ensure the Scrum framework is understood and enacted, which includes coaching the team and facilitating communication. By bringing the stakeholder and product owner together, the Scrum Master enables a transparent discussion about the request's impact on the current sprint goal and the product backlog. This aligns with the PMI ACP's emphasis on Agile principles, particularly self-organization and respect for individuals, as it empowers the product owner to make informed decisions about the backlog and protects the development team from scope creep within a sprint. An incorrect approach would be for the Scrum Master to directly instruct the development team to incorporate the stakeholder's request. This fails to respect the product owner's authority over the product backlog and undermines the team's self-organization. It also bypasses the established event of sprint review, where feedback and potential backlog adjustments are typically discussed. Another incorrect approach would be for the product owner to immediately agree to the stakeholder's request without consulting the development team or considering the impact on the sprint goal. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the product owner's responsibility to maximize the value of the product and manage the product backlog effectively, potentially leading to an unachievable sprint goal and reduced team predictability. A further incorrect approach would be for the development team to unilaterally decide to work on the stakeholder's request. This violates the principle of a self-organizing team that works collaboratively with the product owner and Scrum Master. It also disregards the established process for managing changes and new work, which should flow through the product backlog and be prioritized by the product owner. The professional reasoning framework to use in such situations involves first understanding the core principles of the chosen Agile framework, Scrum in this case. Then, identify the roles and responsibilities of each team member and how they interact. Next, consider the established events and artifacts and how they facilitate decision-making and transparency. Finally, apply Agile values and principles, such as collaboration, transparency, and respect, to guide the resolution, ensuring that the process remains intact while addressing stakeholder needs through appropriate channels. Question 9. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire for feature X from the marketing department, while the operations team has expressed concerns about the integration complexity of feature Y. The development team is also aware of potential impacts on the customer support team's workload. Considering these diverse inputs, what is the most effective approach to identifying all individuals and groups impacted by the project? Option A. Focus stakeholder identification solely on internal departments, as external entities are unlikely to be significantly impacted by the project's development phase. Option B. Prioritize identifying stakeholders based on who provides the most immediate and direct feedback, focusing primarily on the marketing department's feature requests. Option C. Assume that only departments directly requesting features or expressing immediate concerns are the primary stakeholders, and limit further identification to these groups. Option D. Conduct a stakeholder analysis workshop involving representatives from marketing, operations, and customer support, and then expand to include other departments and external entities that might be affected by the project's outcomes. The correct answer is D. Conduct a stakeholder analysis workshop involving representatives from marketing, operations, and customer support, and then expand to include other departments and external entities that might be affected by the project's outcomes. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because the Agile team is receiving conflicting feedback from different groups, making it difficult to accurately identify all individuals and entities impacted by the project. Misidentifying stakeholders can lead to missed requirements, scope creep, or even project failure due to lack of buy-in or active resistance. Careful judgment is required to ensure all relevant parties are considered and engaged appropriately. The correct approach involves a systematic and inclusive process of identifying stakeholders by considering their relationship to the project, their influence, and their interest. This aligns with the principles of Agile project management, which emphasize collaboration and communication. Specifically, it requires looking beyond immediate users to include those who might be indirectly affected, such as support teams, legal departments, or even external regulatory bodies if applicable to the project's domain. This comprehensive identification ensures that all perspectives are considered, leading to a more robust and successful project outcome. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the feedback from the most vocal or easily accessible individuals. This fails to acknowledge the potential impact on less vocal but equally important stakeholders. Ethically, this can lead to disenfranchisement and a lack of fairness, as the needs of some are overlooked. From a regulatory perspective, depending on the project's nature, failing to identify and engage with relevant regulatory bodies or compliance officers could lead to non-compliance issues. Another incorrect approach is to limit stakeholder identification to only those who directly benefit from the product's features. This overlooks individuals or groups who may be impacted by the project's implementation, maintenance, or even its discontinuation. Such a narrow focus can lead to unforeseen challenges and resistance from those who feel their concerns were not addressed. A third incorrect approach is to assume that only individuals within the organization are stakeholders. This ignores the possibility of external stakeholders, such as customers, suppliers, or community groups, who may have a significant interest in or be impacted by the project. Failing to identify and engage with these external parties can lead to reputational damage or missed market opportunities. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a broad understanding of the project's context and potential reach. This involves brainstorming with the team, reviewing project documentation, and actively seeking out individuals and groups who have a vested interest or are affected by the project's outcomes, both directly and indirectly. The process should be iterative, allowing for refinement as the project progresses and new information emerges. Question 10. Comparative studies suggest that in regulated industries, a common misconception about Agile is that it eliminates the need for upfront planning and comprehensive documentation. A project manager is leading an Agile initiative and is facing pressure from a compliance officer who believes that Agile inherently leads to a lack of auditable records and clear project direction. The project manager needs to address this concern effectively. Which of the following approaches best debunks this myth while adhering to Agile principles and regulatory expectations? Option A. Propose to create a complete, detailed project plan and all required documentation upfront before any development begins to satisfy the compliance officer's concerns. Option B. Reassure the compliance officer that all critical decisions will be made verbally and track through informal team discussions, as this is the standard Agile practice for maintaining flexibility. Option C. Explain that Agile methodologies are not suitable for regulated environments, and that traditional waterfall approach with extensive upfront documentation is necessary to meet compliance requirements. Option D. Emphasize that Agile focuses on delivering working software iteratively, and that documentation will be generated as needed, ensuring it is sufficient for compliance and stakeholder understanding without being overly burdensome. The correct answer is D. Emphasize that Agile focuses on delivering working software iteratively, and that documentation will be generated as needed, ensuring it is sufficient for compliance and stakeholder understanding without being overly burdensome. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile adoption: the misconception that Agile inherently means a lack of documentation or planning, leading to potential risks in regulated environments. The professional challenge lies in balancing the iterative and adaptive nature of Agile with the need for auditable records and clear stakeholder alignment, especially when regulatory compliance is a factor. Careful judgment is required to ensure that Agile practices do not inadvertently lead to non-compliance or stakeholder dissatisfaction due to perceived chaos. The correct approach involves recognizing that Agile does not preclude necessary documentation or planning. Rather, it advocates for just enough documentation and adaptive planning. This means creating documentation that is valuable, timely, and supports the team's understanding and the product's evolution, while also ensuring that key decisions and progress are visible to stakeholders. This aligns with the principles of transparency and continuous feedback inherent in Agile, and importantly, supports regulatory requirements for traceability and accountability without stifling agility. An incorrect approach that assumes Agile means no upfront planning or documentation fails to acknowledge the need for a shared understanding and a baseline for progress. This can lead to scope creep, misaligned expectations, and difficulty in demonstrating compliance to auditors or stakeholders. It violates the Agile principle of working software over comprehensive documentation by misinterpreting it as no documentation. Another incorrect approach that insists on extensive, traditional upfront documentation before any development begins directly contradicts the adaptive nature of Agile. This approach prioritizes a rigid, waterfall-like planning process, which can lead to wasted effort if requirements change and negates the benefits of iterative feedback and learning. It also risks creating documentation that quickly becomes outdated, hindering rather than helping. A further incorrect approach that relies solely on informal, verbal agreements for critical decisions and progress tracking ignores the need for a verifiable record. While Agile values communication, critical decisions impacting scope, budget, or compliance must have some form of documented evidence to ensure accountability and provide an audit trail. This can lead to disputes and a lack of clarity, especially in complex projects or regulated industries. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulatory context and its documentation requirements. 2. Educating stakeholders on how Agile principles can be applied to meet these requirements through adaptive planning and appropriate documentation. 3. Collaborating with the team and stakeholders to define what constitutes just enough documentation and planning for the specific project. 4. Continuously inspecting and adapting the documentation and planning approach based on feedback and evolving project needs. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals that the current sprint planning process is leading to significant overestimation of task durations, resulting in consistently missed sprint goals and a decline in team velocity over the last 3 sprints. The team, however, expresses strong satisfaction with their existing planning methods and perceives the study's conclusions as an oversimplification of their complex work. Which of the following is the most appropriate approach for the Agile team and its facilitator to address this situation? Option A. The project manager should immediately implement a new, more rigid sprint planning tool and enforce stricter monitoring of task completion times to ensure adherence to the study's implied efficiency targets. Option B. The project manager should conduct individual performance reviews with team members, highlighting their contributions to the missed sprint goals based on the efficiency study's data. Option C. Teams should disregard the efficiency study's findings, as their current planning methods are comfortable and have been used successfully in the past, and continue with their established routines. Option D. The Agile team, facilitated by the project manager, should collaboratively review the efficiency study's findings, discuss the underlying reasons for the discrepancies, and collectively decide on specific, data-informed adjustments to their sprint planning and monitoring techniques. The correct answer is D. The Agile team, facilitated by the project manager, should collaboratively review the efficiency study's findings, discuss the underlying reasons for the discrepancies, and collectively decide on specific, data-informed adjustments to their sprint planning and monitoring techniques. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because the efficiency study's findings directly conflict with the team's established Agile practices and perceived progress. The team's resistance to change, even when data suggests a need for it, highlights the common tension between ingrained habits and objective performance metrics. Careful judgment is required to balance team morale and autonomy with the imperative to improve efficiency and deliver value effectively, all within the guiding principles of Agile frameworks. The correct approach involves the Agile team collaboratively analyzing the efficiency study's data, identifying root causes for the identified inefficiencies, and then collectively deciding on and implementing specific, actionable improvements to their planning and monitoring processes. This aligns with the Agile principle of self-organizing teams and continuous improvement. By involving the team in the analysis and solution, it fosters buy-in and ownership, making the changes more sustainable. This approach respects the team's expertise and empowers them to adapt their practices based on evidence, which is a cornerstone of Agile methodologies. An incorrect approach that involves the project manager unilaterally imposing new planning and monitoring tools or processes based solely on the study's findings, without team consultation, fails to leverage the team's insights and can lead to resentment and reduced adoption. This disregards the Agile principle of empowering individuals and teams. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the efficiency study's findings outright due to the team's comfort with current methods, ignores the potential for significant improvement and risks perpetuating suboptimal practices, hindering the project's overall success and value delivery. Finally, an approach that focuses on blaming individual team members for the inefficiencies, rather than examining the systemic processes, is counterproductive and violates the Agile principle of creating a supportive and trusting environment. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven insights, collaborative problem-solving, and adherence to Agile values. This involves actively seeking and interpreting performance data, engaging the team in understanding the implications of that data, and jointly developing and implementing solutions that align with Agile principles of adaptation and continuous improvement. Question 12. Regulatory review indicates that a project team is encountering resistance from a key stakeholder who is accustomed to extensive, upfront documentation and fixed scope, and is questioning the Agile approach of delivering working software incrementally. The project manager needs to address this stakeholder's concerns while upholding the principles of the Agile Certified Practitioner (PMI) Act framework. Which of the following actions best addresses this situation? Option A. Immediately halt development and initiate the creation of a comprehensive, detailed documentation set that outlines all features and functionalities before proceeding with any further Agile iterations. Option B. Propose a collaborative workshop with the stakeholder to demonstrate the value of iterative development, showcase early working increments, and discuss how feedback will be incorporated to refine the product, emphasizing the Agile manifesto values of working software and customer collaboration. Option C. Inform the stakeholder that the project will proceed strictly according to the initial plan and contract, with no deviations permitted, regardless of feedback or changing requirements. Option D. Reassure the stakeholder that all contractual obligations will be met precisely as written, and that any requests for changes will be handled through a formal, lengthy change control process that prioritizes documentation over immediate implementation. Correct answer is B. Propose a collaborative workshop with the stakeholder to demonstrate the value of iterative development, showcase early working increments, and discuss how feedback will be incorporated to refine the product, emphasizing the Agile manifesto values of working software and customer collaboration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile environments where a perceived need for detailed, upfront documentation clashes with the Agile principle of prioritizing working software and responding to change. The project manager faces pressure from stakeholders accustomed to traditional waterfall documentation standards, creating a conflict between established practices and Agile values. Navigating this requires a deep understanding of the Agile Manifesto and the ability to articulate its benefits in a way that addresses stakeholder concerns while maintaining Agile integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach is to engage the stakeholders in a discussion about the value of iterative development and the trade-offs involved. This involves explaining how Agile methodologies deliver value incrementally through working software, allowing for feedback and adaptation. The focus should be on demonstrating progress and value through functional increments rather than solely relying on comprehensive, static documentation. This aligns directly with the Agile Manifesto values of working software over comprehensive documentation and customer collaboration over contract negotiation. By fostering collaboration and demonstrating tangible results, the project manager can build trust and manage expectations effectively, adhering to the spirit of Agile principles. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing the creation of comprehensive documentation before any development begins directly contradicts the Agile Manifesto value of working software over comprehensive documentation. This approach risks significant rework if requirements evolve, leading to wasted effort and delayed delivery of value. It also undermines the principle of responding to change over following a plan, by attempting to lock down scope and design prematurely. Insisting on strict adherence to a predefined, detailed plan without any flexibility for feedback or adaptation violates the Agile Manifesto value of responding to change over following a plan. This rigid approach ignores the inherent uncertainty in complex projects and the benefits of iterative feedback loops. It also neglects the importance of customer collaboration over contract negotiation by not actively involving the customer in shaping the evolving product. Focusing solely on contractual obligations and the initial scope without considering evolving customer needs or market dynamics disregards the Agile Manifesto value of customer collaboration over contract negotiation. While contracts are important, Agile emphasizes a partnership with the customer to deliver the most valuable product, which often requires adapting to new information and priorities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the underlying concerns of the stakeholders. Then, they should clearly articulate the chosen Agile values and principles, explaining how they contribute to delivering value and managing risk. This involves active listening, transparent communication, and a willingness to educate stakeholders on Agile practices. The decision-making process should prioritize demonstrating value through working software and fostering collaborative relationships, while managing expectations regarding the nature and timing of documentation. Question 13. Consider a scenario where a product owner, excited by a new market opportunity, requests that the development team immediately prioritize and deliver a single, complex feature in the next iteration, even though it deviates significantly from the planned backlog and would require substantial rework of existing components to integrate properly. The team has been consistently delivering small, tested increments of value according to the established iterative plan. Option A. Inform the product owner that their request cannot be accommodated as it disrupts the established iterative process and will be considered for a future, unspecified iteration. Option B. Agree to build the requested feature as a separate, unmanaged task outside of the regular iteration cycle to satisfy the product owner's immediate demand. Option C. Discuss the product owner's request with the team to assess the impact on the current iteration's goals and the overall product roadmap, proposing alternative ways to incorporate the feature or a phased approach that aligns with iterative delivery principles. Option D. Immediately halt current work and dedicate the entire team to building the requested feature as a standalone item, regardless of its impact on the iteration's planned deliverables or integration. The correct answer is C. Discuss the product owner's request with the team to assess the impact on the current iteration's goals and the overall product roadmap, proposing alternative ways to incorporate the feature or a phased approach that aligns with iterative delivery principles. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the tension between delivering immediate perceived value and ensuring the long-term sustainability and ethical integrity of the product. The product owner's request, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, risks compromising the core principles of incremental and iterative development by prioritizing a single, potentially incomplete feature over a well-rounded, tested increment. Careful judgment is required to balance stakeholder demands with the team's commitment to quality and the iterative process. Correct approach involves engaging in a collaborative discussion with the product owner to understand the underlying business need and explore how it can be integrated into the existing iterative plan. This approach upholds the principles of incremental and iterative development by ensuring that each increment delivers demonstrable value, is thoroughly tested, and contributes to the overall product vision. It aligns with ethical considerations by promoting transparency, collaboration, and a commitment to delivering a high-quality, functional product rather than a rushed, potentially flawed feature. This respects the team's process and avoids technical debt. An incorrect approach would be to immediately agree to the product owner's request without discussion. This fails to uphold the iterative nature of development, potentially leading to a feature that is not well integrated, lacks necessary testing, and may require significant rework later, thereby increasing costs and delaying future value delivery. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of professional integrity by prioritizing a single stakeholder's immediate desire over the team's established process and the product's overall health. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the product owner's request outright without understanding the business context. This can lead to strained stakeholder relationships and a perception that the development team is not responsive to business needs. While maintaining process integrity is important, a complete disregard for stakeholder input can be detrimental to project success and team morale. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to deliver the requested feature as a separate, unintegrated piece of work outside the regular iteration. This undermines the concept of delivering value in small, frequent increments that are part of a cohesive whole. It creates silos, increases complexity, and makes it difficult to assess the true value and impact of the delivered work within the product's context. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves active listening to understand the stakeholder's request and underlying need. It requires open communication and collaboration to explore how the request can be best met within the established Agile framework, prioritizing value delivery through well-defined increments. Professionals should advocate for the principles of iterative development, quality, and transparency, seeking solutions that balance stakeholder expectations with sustainable development practices. Question 14. The performance metrics show a significant increase in bug reports and a slowdown in feature delivery over the past 2 sprints. The team has been under pressure to accelerate development, and some team members have suggested cutting corners on code reviews and automated testing to meet sprint goals. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to extreme programming (XP) principles? Option A. The team holds a retrospective specifically to analyze the performance metrics, discuss the potential impact of reduced quality practices, and collaboratively decide on actions to reinforce XP practices like test-driven development and continuous integration to improve both quality and delivery speed. Option B. The team continues with the current development pace, assuming the performance metrics are a temporary anomaly and will resolve themselves as the team gains more experience with the new features. Option C. The team prioritizes delivering the remaining features in the current roadmap by temporarily suspending automated testing and code reviews to catch up on the schedule, with a plan to address technical debt later. Option D. The team leader analyzes the metrics and assigns blame to specific developers for the increase in bugs, instructing them to work overtime to fix the issues without involving the rest of the team in the solution. The correct answer is A. The team holds a retrospective specifically to analyze the performance metrics, discuss the potential impact of reduced quality practices, and collaboratively decide on actions to reinforce XP practices like test-driven development and continuous integration to improve both quality and delivery speed. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile environments where the pressure to deliver quickly can sometimes lead teams to overlook foundational principles. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for visible progress with the long-term sustainability and quality of the product, which are core tenets of extreme programming, XP. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the team's practices align with XP values and contribute to a robust, adaptable solution, rather than creating technical debt that will hinder future development. The correct approach involves a proactive and collaborative effort to address the identified issues by revisiting and reinforcing XP practices. This approach is right because it directly confronts the root causes of the performance degradation by leveraging the core XP values. Communication is enhanced through open discussion about the metrics and their implications. Simplicity is restored by focusing on the most straightforward solutions to the identified problems. Feedback is actively sought and incorporated by using the metrics as a signal for necessary adjustments. Courage is demonstrated by the team's willingness to acknowledge and tackle difficult issues, and respect is fostered by working together to find solutions that benefit the entire team and product. Specifically, re-emphasizing practices like test-driven development (TDD) and continuous integration (SI) directly addresses potential quality issues and integration problems, while a renewed focus on refactoring ensures the codebase remains clean and maintainable. This aligns with the ethical imperative to deliver high-quality, sustainable software. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the metrics and continuing with the current pace, assuming the issues are temporary, fails to uphold the value of feedback. It also demonstrates a lack of courage to address potential problems and can lead to a decline in product quality, which is an ethical failure to deliver a fit-for-purpose product. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on adding more features without addressing the underlying performance issues, neglects the value of simplicity and can exacerbate technical debt, ultimately hindering future progress and violating the implicit agreement to deliver a functional and efficient product. A third incorrect approach, where the team blames external factors or individuals without taking collective responsibility, undermines the values of communication and respect, and prevents the team from learning and improving collaboratively. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the why behind performance metrics. This involves fostering an environment where data is seen as a tool for improvement, not blame. When metrics indicate issues, the first step should be open, honest communication within the team to understand the contributing factors. This should be followed by a collaborative problem-solving session, drawing upon the team's collective knowledge and the principles of Agile methodologies like XP. The focus should always be on identifying and implementing solutions that reinforce the core values and practices, ensuring both short-term fixes and long-term sustainability. Question 15. The investigation demonstrates that a newly formed Agile team is struggling to effectively disseminate critical project updates regarding a novel technology to both internal stakeholders and external regulatory bodies, leading to potential delays and compliance concerns. Which of the following communication planning strategies best addresses this challenge within the specified regulatory framework? Option A. Establish a single point of contact for all external communications and delegate all internal updates to the product owner without a defined protocol. Option B. Rely primarily on informal daily stand-ups and instant messaging for all project communications to ensure rapid information flow within the Agile team. Option C. Share all project-related information with every stakeholder to ensure complete transparency and avoid any potential information gaps. Option D. Develop a comprehensive communication plan that defines specific channels, frequencies, and audiences for different types of project information, integrating it into team working agreements and ensuring it aligns with regulatory disclosure requirements. Correct answer is D. Develop a comprehensive communication plan that defines specific channels, frequencies, and audiences for different types of project information, integrating it into team working agreements and ensuring it aligns with regulatory disclosure requirements. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common challenge in Agile environments, ensuring effective and compliant communication across diverse stakeholders, especially when dealing with sensitive project information. The professional challenge lies in balancing the Agile principle of frequent communication with the regulatory requirement for controlled information dissemination, particularly concerning intellectual property and potential market-sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to select communication strategies that are both efficient for the Agile team and adhere to the specified regulatory framework. The correct approach involves establishing a clear, documented communication plan that outlines specific channels, frequencies, and audiences for different types of information. This plan should be integrated into the team's working agreements and regularly reviewed. This aligns with the Agile principle of business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project, but also addresses the need for structured communication as mandated by regulatory guidelines that often require auditable communication trails and defined points of contact for sensitive disclosures. The regulatory justification stems from the need to maintain compliance with data protection, intellectual property, and disclosure regulations, ensuring that information is shared appropriately and securely. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on informal, ad hoc communication channels like instant messaging for all project updates, regardless of sensitivity. This fails to meet regulatory requirements for documented communication and auditability, potentially leading to unauthorized disclosures or breaches of confidentiality. Another incorrect approach is to overcommunicate by sharing every piece of information with every stakeholder, regardless of their need to know. This can lead to information overload, dilute critical messages, and increase the risk of sensitive data falling into the wrong hands, violating principles of data minimization and targeted communication often found in regulatory frameworks. Finally, an approach that neglects to define clear communication protocols for external stakeholders, such as clients or regulatory bodies, creates ambiguity and can result in misinterpretations or missed critical communications, posing significant compliance risks. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a proactive approach to communication planning. This involves identifying all relevant stakeholders, understanding their information needs and the sensitivity of project data, and then designing a communication strategy that satisfies both Agile collaboration needs and regulatory obligations. This includes defining escalation paths, secure channels for sensitive data, and clear responsibilities for communication dissemination. Question 16. The analysis reveals that a new Agile project has a backlog filled with numerous feature requests from various stakeholders, each claiming high importance. The product owner needs to guide the team in determining which features to develop first to maximize value delivery within the upcoming iterations, while also managing expectations about what can realistically be achieved. Which prioritization technique, when applied collaboratively with stakeholders, best addresses the need to categorize features by their essentiality and potential impact, while also acknowledging limitations? Option A. Focusing exclusively on features that require the least development effort, regardless of their business value. Option B. Allowing individual stakeholders to unilaterally decide the priority of their requested features. Option C. Applying the MOSCOW method to categorize features into must-have, should-have, could-have, and won't-have, facilitating clear communication about scope and expectations. Option D. Prioritizing features solely based on the order in which they were submitted by stakeholders. The correct answer is C. Applying the MOSCOW method to categorize features into must-have, should-have, could-have, and won't-have, facilitating clear communication about scope and expectations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile environments where competing stakeholder demands and limited resources necessitate effective prioritization. Professional challenge lies in balancing the desire to deliver value quickly with the need to ensure that the most critical features are addressed, while also managing stakeholder expectations and potential conflicts. Careful judgment is required to avoid scope creep, ensure alignment with business objectives, and maintain team focus. The correct approach involves a structured method that clearly categorizes features based on their importance and feasibility, facilitating transparent decision-making. This aligns with the PMI ACP's emphasis on delivering value and adapting to change, as well as ethical considerations of fairness and transparency in resource allocation. By involving stakeholders in the prioritization process and using a defined framework, the team can build consensus and ensure that development efforts are focused on what truly matters. An incorrect approach that solely relies on the loudest voice or the most recent request fails to establish objective criteria for prioritization. This can lead to the development of less valuable features, while critical ones are neglected, potentially violating the ethical principle of acting in the best interest of the project and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes features based on perceived ease of implementation, without considering their business value, risks wasting resources on low-impact items, undermining the project's overall goals, and potentially leading to dissatisfaction. A third incorrect approach that ignores the won't-have category can lead to scope creep and an unmanageable backlog, impacting team morale and delivery timelines, which is contrary to Agile principles of sustainable pace and focused effort. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the project's overarching goals and then systematically applies a chosen prioritization technique. This involves active stakeholder engagement, clear communication of the chosen method, and a commitment to revisiting priorities as the project evolves. The framework should prioritize objective assessment over subjective opinions and ensure that the chosen method supports transparency and accountability. Question 17. The assessment process reveals that a key stakeholder has expressed significant concern about the perceived lack of progress on a feature they consider critical, despite the team consistently delivering incremental value. The stakeholder is questioning the team's ability to meet their overall business objective. Which of the following approaches best addresses this stakeholder concern proactively and ethically? Option A. Inform the stakeholder that the team is following the Agile process correctly and that their concerns are unfounded, suggesting they review the project backlog for clarity. Option B. Promise the stakeholder that the feature will be prioritized in the next iteration without fully assessing the impact on the current sprint or the overall backlog. Option C. Advise the stakeholder to wait for the next formal project review meeting to discuss their concerns, as the team is too busy to address them immediately. Option D. Schedule a dedicated meeting with the stakeholder to actively listen to their specific concerns, understand the underlying reasons for their perception of slow progress, and collaboratively explore how the current Agile process and upcoming backlog items can better align with their perceived critical needs, while also explaining the value delivered incrementally. Correct answer is D. Schedule a dedicated meeting with the stakeholder to actively listen to their specific concerns, understand the underlying reasons for their perception of slow progress, and collaboratively explore how the current Agile process and upcoming backlog items can better align with their perceived critical needs, while also explaining the value delivered incrementally. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in Agile projects: managing stakeholder expectations when faced with evolving requirements and potential scope creep. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the Agile principle of embracing change with the need to maintain project predictability and stakeholder trust. Proactive communication and transparent expectation management are crucial to prevent misunderstandings and maintain alignment. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause of the concern and select the most appropriate response that upholds ethical principles and project success. The correct approach involves a structured, collaborative discussion to understand the stakeholders' underlying concerns and explore potential solutions that align with project goals and constraints. This demonstrates a commitment to transparency, active listening, and problem solving, which are fundamental to effective stakeholder management in Agile environments. This approach aligns with the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, specifically the principles of honesty, responsibility, and respect, by addressing concerns directly and seeking mutually agreeable outcomes. It also reflects Agile values of customer collaboration and responding to change. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate feature delivery, without addressing the underlying concerns, risks exacerbating the problem. This could lead to dissatisfaction, erosion of trust, and potential project derailment. It fails to uphold the principle of responsibility by not adequately investigating the root cause of the stakeholders' unease. Another incorrect approach that involves deferring the discussion or providing vague assurances without concrete action is ethically questionable. This can be seen as a failure of honesty and responsibility, as it avoids direct engagement and potentially misleads the stakeholder about the project's status or capabilities. A further incorrect approach that involves unilaterally deciding to accommodate the request without proper assessment or stakeholder consultation disregards the collaborative nature of Agile and the importance of informed decision-making. This can lead to scope creep, resource strain, and unmet expectations for other stakeholders, violating the principle of responsibility. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Actively listening to and seeking to understand the stakeholders' concerns. 2. Analyzing the root cause of the concern in the context of project goals, constraints, and Agile principles. 3. Collaborating with the stakeholder and the team to explore viable solutions. 4. Communicating transparently about decisions, trade-offs, and next steps. 5. Documenting agreements and ensuring alignment. Question 18. To address the challenge of optimizing development processes for a complex software project with evolving requirements, which of the following approaches would best facilitate continuous improvement and efficient delivery of value? Option A. utilizing a predictive model that defines all project scope, schedule, and cost upfront, with strict change control mechanisms to minimize deviations. Option B, implementing a phased approach with extensive upfront planning, detailed documentation, and formal stage gate reviews before proceeding to the next phase. Option C, adopting an iterative and incremental approach, delivering working software frequently, and incorporating feedback from stakeholders to adapt processes and product development. Option D, employing a hybrid model that combines extensive upfront design with periodic, but infrequent, delivery of integrated components. The correct answer is B, implementing a phased approach with extensive upfront planning, detailed documentation, and formal stage gate reviews before proceeding to the next phase. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a deep understanding of how different project management methodologies impact process optimization, particularly in the context of delivering value and adapting to change. The core of the challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate approach based on the project's inherent characteristics and the desired outcomes, rather than defaulting to a familiar but potentially suboptimal method. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for structure with the imperative for flexibility, ensuring that the chosen methodology actively contributes to process improvement and efficient delivery. The correct approach emphasizes iterative development and continuous feedback, which are fundamental to process optimization in agile environments. This involves breaking down work into smaller, manageable increments, allowing for frequent inspection and adaptation. By delivering working software or tangible outputs regularly, teams can quickly identify bottlenecks, inefficiencies, or areas for improvement in their processes. This aligns with Agile principles that prioritize responding to change over following a rigid plan, thereby enabling dynamic optimization. The regulatory framework for the PMI ACP exam, while not a legal statute, is built upon established Agile principles and practices that advocate for this adaptive and value-driven approach to process optimization. An incorrect approach that relies solely on upfront, comprehensive planning without iterative feedback loops fails to leverage the benefits of Agile for process optimization. This rigid, waterfall-like methodology can lead to significant rework and delayed identification of process issues, as feedback is only gathered at major milestones. This is ethically problematic as it can lead to wasted resources and a failure to deliver optimal value to stakeholders in a timely manner, contradicting the Agile tenet of delivering working solutions frequently. Another incorrect approach that focuses on extensive documentation and formal approvals at every stage, without a corresponding emphasis on rapid iteration and feedback, also hinders process optimization. While documentation is important, an overemphasis on it in a context that could benefit from agility can create bureaucratic overhead that slows down adaptation and improvement. This can lead to a situation where processes become outdated before they are fully implemented or optimized, failing to meet the dynamic needs of the project and its stakeholders. This is professionally unsound as it prioritizes form over function, potentially leading to suboptimal outcomes and a failure to achieve the project's underlying goals efficiently. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of the project's context, including the level of uncertainty, the need for flexibility, and the desired pace of delivery. It requires understanding the core principles of different methodologies and how they support or hinder process optimization. Professionals should ask, which approach will best enable us to learn, adapt, and improve our processes as we deliver value? This involves considering the feedback loops, the ability to inspect and adapt, and the focus on delivering working increments. Prioritizing an approach that fosters continuous improvement and responsiveness to change, aligned with Agile values, is crucial for effective process optimization. Question 19. The review process indicates that the product owner has presented a comprehensive list of desired features for the upcoming release, along with a firm deadline and a fixed budget. The development team has expressed concerns about the feasibility of delivering all requested features within the given constraints, citing their current velocity and the complexity of some items. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation in accordance with Agile principles and best practices for release planning? Option A. The product owner should be informed that the requested scope is impossible to deliver within the given constraints, and the team will proceed with a reduced scope based on their own assessment, without further stakeholder consultation. Option B. The team should collaborate with the product owner to prioritize the features, estimate their effort, and then collectively determine what can realistically be achieved within the defined budget and schedule, potentially involving trade-offs. Option C. The team should accept the full scope and deadline, working overtime and cutting corners on quality to meet the stakeholders' expectations, as this demonstrates commitment. Option D. The team should immediately begin development on the highest priority features, deferring discussions about scope adjustments until later in the release cycle to avoid delaying the start of work. The correct answer is D. The team should immediately begin development on the highest priority features, deferring discussions about scope adjustments until later in the release cycle to avoid delaying the start of work. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Agile release planning, balancing stakeholder expectations for scope and schedule with the realities of budget constraints and team capacity. The professional challenge lies in making informed decisions that uphold the integrity of the Agile process and the project's viability, while also managing stakeholder relationships effectively. Careful judgment is required to avoid overcommitting the team or compromising quality, which can lead to project failure and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a collaborative and iterative process of defining release scope, schedule, and budget. This typically starts with understanding the highest priority features and estimating their effort. The team then works with stakeholders to determine what can realistically be delivered within a given time frame and budget, often involving trade-offs between scope, time, and cost. This approach aligns with Agile principles of transparency, inspection, and adaptation, ensuring that the release plan is based on current understanding and can be adjusted as needed. It also fosters trust by involving stakeholders in the decision-making process and managing expectations realistically. An incorrect approach would be to commit to a fixed scope and aggressive schedule without adequate validation of effort or consideration of budget limitations. This often leads to scope creep, team burnout, and missed deadlines, ultimately failing to deliver value and eroding stakeholder confidence. Another incorrect approach is to arbitrarily cut scope or quality to fit a predetermined budget or schedule without proper analysis or stakeholder agreement. This can result in a release that does not meet the intended business objectives or user needs, rendering it ineffective. Failing to involve the development team in the estimation and planning process is also a significant failure, as it bypasses the expertise needed for realistic assessments and can lead to unrealistic commitments. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, collaboration, and data-driven estimation. This involves clearly communicating the team's capacity and the effort required for features, actively seeking stakeholder input on priorities, and using Agile metrics and techniques to inform release planning. When faced with conflicting demands, the framework should guide professionals to facilitate discussions that explore trade-offs and identify the most viable path forward, ensuring that the release plan is achievable and aligned with business goals. Question 20. What factors determine the optimal sequencing of Agile development activities to maximize the benefits of increased flexibility, faster time to market, improved customer satisfaction, enhanced team collaboration, and reduced risk for a new software product launch? Option A. Focusing exclusively on achieving technical perfection for all components before considering any customer feedback or release. Option B. Deferring the assessment and mitigation of potential project risks until the final stages of development to streamline initial planning. Option C. Prioritizing the development of features that offer the highest immediate customer value and address the most significant project risks in early iterations. Option D. Completing all initially defined features in a sequential manner to ensure comprehensive functionality before any release. The correct answer is C. Prioritizing the development of features that offer the highest immediate customer value and address the most significant project risks in early iterations. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing competing stakeholder needs and project constraints within an Agile framework, specifically concerning the delivery of value and risk mitigation. The project manager must make a judgment call on how to best leverage Agile principles to achieve the desired outcomes. The correct approach focuses on prioritizing features that deliver the most immediate customer value and reduce the highest risks. This aligns with the core Agile tenet of delivering working software frequently and adapting to change. By focusing on increased flexibility and faster time to market for high-value features, the team can gain early feedback, improve customer satisfaction, and reduce the risk of building something that doesn't meet market needs. Enhanced team collaboration is a natural byproduct of this focused, iterative approach. This strategy directly addresses the benefits of Agile by maximizing value delivery and minimizing uncertainty early in the project lifecycle. An incorrect approach that prioritizes completing all planned features regardless of immediate value or risk would fail to capitalize on Agile's inherent flexibility. This could lead to a slower time to market for critical features and an increased risk of scope creep or building features that are ultimately not needed, thereby diminishing customer satisfaction. Another incorrect approach that solely focuses on technical perfection without regard for delivery timelines or customer feedback would also be detrimental. While technical excellence is important, Agile emphasizes delivering value to the customer. Delaying delivery for the sake of minor technical improvements, when significant value could be delivered sooner, contradicts the principle of faster time to market and improved customer satisfaction. A further incorrect approach that postpones risk assessment until later stages would be a significant failure. Agile methodologies advocate for continuous risk identification and mitigation. Delaying this process increases the likelihood of encountering major roadblocks that could derail the project, negatively impacting all other benefits. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly understanding the project's objectives and stakeholder expectations. This involves identifying the highest value features and the most significant risks. The team should then collaboratively plan iterations to address these priorities, leveraging Agile practices like backlog refinement and sprint planning. Regular feedback loops with stakeholders are crucial to ensure alignment and adapt the plan as needed. This iterative and adaptive approach, grounded in delivering value and managing risk, is the cornerstone of successful Agile implementation.